Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Rewrite the Mother Code with me, your host, Dr. Gertrude Lyons. Well, I am thrilled to have on the show today someone I've known, oh gosh, probably I think we were figuring out at least since 2020, 2021, when we were back then on each other's podcast. But Sonni Abatta uh, is on the show today. She has a beautiful platform. We got to talk. But I was struck recently by the content she was putting out and what she's doing to create a space where we can feel safe to look at all the perspectives and some of the nuances in all the charged news cycles, right? She does even more than that, as she'll describe, but I think it's courageous. I think it's important. It's so needed, and it's so in line with Rewrite the Mother Code and having us explore and be curious and make discerned decisions and opinions. For me, particularly, in the perspective of mothering and motherhood decisions. But this is, this covers the gamut. So let me tell you a little bit about her and then we'll bring her on the show. Okay. So Sonni is an award-winning and Emmy-nominated journalist. She's spent 15 years working in traditional media and the past 10 years in the digital space. Her platform, We Gotta Talk, and her Substack is all about informing women on news and lifestyle. It's for women who want to know what's happening in the world, but not get overwhelmed by the headlines. And that is what she does. She does it extremely well. We get to, dig into how she came to be doing what she's doing and some of her journey and, see what all the nuances that we uncover and explore. So here we go. Well, I'm so excited. So as promised, welcome to the show, Sonni Abatta. Sonni, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Gertrude. It's a pleasure to see you again and to reconnect.
I know we spent some time catching up a little bit before we hit the record button, but I love that we've had a trajectory, even though we've only dropped in like a few times, but they've always been so meaningful to me, both recording podcasts together, talking, and then meeting at Mom 2.0. Was that 2 or 3 years ago?
I was just trying to
I
do the
think
math. It must have been three.
I think it was three.
I think we're in 2026 now. I think it was three.
I do.
Time is a
I think it
construct.
was
I don't know why.
2023,
I think it was. It was a while
right?
ago. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was
Yeah.
3 years.
I think it was their first big live one after
Yes, after COVID.
COVID. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
were out in the
Like when
desert. It was
we
wonderful. Out
were,
in
we
Arizona. It
were.
was fun. It was a great
Yeah.
conference. Yeah.
It was lovely. Um, and I was excited to bring you back on the show to share about the work that you're doing now. And, but we'll get into that. I won't say so specifically because what I first just want to have you share about yourself and your journey. And you've been an inspiration to me in many ways and realms, both as a professional and who you are there, but also as a thoughtful, caring woman and mother and all the like just you living your life. So
Oh, that's very sweet.
really
Well,
happy
thank
about
you.
that. So I'm going to turn it
Yes.
over to you with this open-ended sharing about you and your journey, whatever comes through.
Okay, so oh my God. It's so funny when you ask that because I am a professional leading person, but I probably define myself so much more by my personal life and how I was raised and the belief system that like my family, that's like kind of what I lean toward when people are like, oh, tell me about yourself. I should probably go more professional, which is the journalism and all that. We can get into that. I've been in the media space for what is 2003, 23 years now, which is wild. But I am just a
Mm,
girl from Pittsburgh, an Italian American girl who grew up in a really, really family centric, intensely emotional, really
mm,
um, big and close knit family. And I really think when I look back, a lot of my professional decisions were informed by some of those connections that I made early on. So I grew up in Pittsburgh. I went to Carnegie Mellon University, and I studied writing and drama. They did not have a journalism program, so I was in an interdisciplinary school there. So I was able to be a student of both the fine arts school
Mm,
and the humanities school, and through various, in class experiences as well as internships and shadowing, I cobbled together a journalism degree. Um, and I graduated and started
mm,
working in the media world in 2003 at the age of 21. I was the youngest hire at a CBS affiliate in Pittsburgh by, I don't know that I was 20, they had to like create a little trainee position for me essentially. And oh gosh, there's so much trauma about the first several years working professionally in media, but that was an
oh
overall
man.
wonderful experience. And I stayed in that world for um, 15 years. And I left the business probably, it'll be 9 years ago. I have three kids now and a husband. I have a 13, 11,
Mm,
and 8-year old, a son and two daughters. And I've reworked my professional life around um, raising them. And it's been a gift to like be in this space where digital media is sort of the anchor of things now because I have so much freedom to kind of scratch the itch of what I love
hmm
professionally, which is news and current events and media literacy and kind of keeping people informed on what's happening. I'm like a true nerd at heart, but also I'm very blessed to have the balance of, being there with my kids too, because as you know, it goes so really fast. It's the most trite saying about motherhood, but it is the
hmm
truest. And so
It
I've been
is.
able to kind of work my podcast has been around for whatever 2018 is. Gertrude, my math is so bad. Is that 7 years?
I
Almost
know.
7 years.
Whatever.
It's a
8.
long time.
Wouldn't it
Yeah,
be?
is it eight?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been around, yeah, for a long time. And yeah, so I've been in this digital media space now for 10 almost 10 years doing podcasting and kind of staying in the world of news and current events and kind of a little bit of lifestyle and health and motherhood
hmm
too. And yeah, but I would say that like it's funny. You probably know this. You could probably articulate this in a better way with your professional background, but there is really something to who you are as a kid is kind of who you are as an adult, just like dressed up a little bit
Mm.
more, And I look back at
I
like,
love that.
especially being a mom now, how you like you see yourself in your kids, like not literally, but physically, well, I guess sometimes too, but like metaphor, like I see my traits in my children, and now I'm even more aware of like it just makes a lot of sense now. I'm like, oh, this makes sense that I am the adult that I am because now I remember again who I was as a kid. And yeah, it's been
And the family and yeah,
yes,
the
in those
wiring. I mean, that's what I work on, right? It's looking at that coding and that,
yes.
and that we can then make choices, but it's and there's DNA, but there's, a wiring that happens. And it is like when you realize and kind of wake up and see it, it is wild, isn't it? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's cool. And like I've had some opportunities to like I did hypnotherapy. Like I do all the weird stuff like lunar circles and hypnotherapy and like I do every alternate therapy you can think of just to kind of try things out. And when I was doing a hypnotherapy session once, my instructor, or whoever she was, the woman guiding me through, the therapist, did an inner child exercise on me, where you envision I will cry thinking about it. It was
Mm,
probably the most profound psychological experience that I've had in like ever. Like, and
wow.
so it was, yeah. So your work has always interested me too, because you work a lot of this into what you do and just understanding who you are and why we end up how we end up and caring about what we care about and showing up in the world as we do has so much to do with like that little girl, that little kid, you know?
Yeah. But I'm
It's
so happy to have you like talk about that because I think in some ways inner child work has gotten, it's kind of in the atmosphere as not like trite, but
more common
maybe the a common or the term you can kind of pass over it,
now. Mhm.
right? So I love you remembering the significance and it's I use it in my coaching, a lot. And I guess I get kind of surprised too. It's like, oh yeah, this really is impactful. That little girl lives inside of us, that little being. We can
Yes.
connect back with that space and we can talk and heal and have a relationship. It does sound a little odd, but when you're doing it, it's like, oh yeah, like
Yeah. It's like at
this
the
is
core of who you
amazing.
are. And I was always it kind of makes sense ending up in journalism. I was very observant, very quiet. I mean, so
Mm,
quiet that they were like ready to diagnose me with something as like
mm,
I go back and I read this paperwork and it was these observations the teachers would make of me. They're like, we think, and I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I was always sitting back, watching, listening, writing, asking questions. I would sit at the adult table as a kid. And we had Sunday dinners, spaghetti
mhm.
and meatball dinners every Sunday at my grandparents' house. And there was the adult table and the kid table. And I was the youngest of my group of cousins that was local to the area. There were 10 of us. And I would finish dinner. We had our like, I would make like a spaghetti sandwich in the roll. I mean, it was just like the best food, like a carb
Ah,
feast. And I would scamper into the adult room and I would sit on my mom's lap and I would just like listen to the conversation just back and forth. And I remember my grandfather saying, Sonny, why do you carry your books with you everywhere? Your homework is done. I would have a notebook. I was just such a turbo nerd forever. But now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, it was like kind of who I've always been, you know?
yeah.
So it's wild. It's really crazy to think
Uh,
about. But it's an
well,
exciting
it's
time to be in this space because it's just something obviously that I really love. So yeah.
well, I think it's beautiful, and I love you recognizing her and seeing, and even if in some of that journey we see, that some aspect of it was, I'm going to call it that this is going to be extreme for what you're talking about, a coping mechanism or a defense mechanism, like finding your place, like in a family system, like seeing where you fit in and like, oh, like maybe it's where I get attention or not attention, whatever. I want to be left alone. So here I am with, like
There's so
and there's
much to
no
do.
right or wrong. It's neutral, like roles. I always say this, like when people like or don't like the role they had in their family, I'm like, they're new, they just exist to create a certain sense of like dealing with the anxiety that runs through any system, right?
It's so
And
true. Yeah.
that's all it
I've never
is.
heard it articulated like that. I think you're right on a very base level. It probably was a coping mechanism because it was a very stimulating environment a lot of the time. My family is, and I love my parents are the greatest, and my sisters are the greatest, but
Mhm.
you could use that word to describe our communication style. It's just it's very level 10, you know?
hmm
And we are who
Well,
we
you
are.
picture a bit of a stereotypical Italian family and lots of expression and
Yes.
hands and arms
Oh,
and
yes.
and all of
Everything
it, right?
was full out in every way. And that was like for better and sometimes for worse, but it yeah, when you said I'm like, yeah, it probably was. It was probably my young self being like, okay, let's like find a little peace and quiet. Like grab the notebook and go in the corner for a
hmm
while, Sonny.
Yeah, but then you get to see like there's when you reckon with those later, like, okay, I can be with the little girl who maybe was scared or dealing with overstimulation and your nervous system, like, had to cope with it in a certain way. But like, wow, look at this amazing skill I got from it, right? Like
Yeah,
that's where it's such a benefit always from from those awarenesses of ourselves.
yeah, I think, not to toot my own horn, but I do think my emotional intelligence is rather high. My ability to read a room, I'm impeccably accurate with people's character and seeing behavioral patterns. Like I can spot stuff a mile away. And this is not coming from a place of judgment. Like I think that there are bad patterns or whatever, but
No.
I sometimes I see the chess pieces a little too clearly too soon, and I will remove myself probably prematurely from relationships and situations because I can feel how things are going to play out pretty quickly. So yeah, my mom is going to listen to this and be like, "Oh my God, I had a great childhood, mom." It's not a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Don't
No,
worry. We're
it
not
is
dragging anyone down. Yeah.
no, 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 no. It is a gift. Like I'm a great communicator. I don't have any problem saying I'm old enough to like give myself my own flowers now. I'm a great communicator as a result of my family and the way that communication was prioritized. Feelings were not hidden, no matter how ugly or how
Yeah,
difficult. We talked about everything.
it's
Everything.
amazing.
It's amazing. Like I have known
Hmm.
there was never a need to question anything in my family, whether it was like something that was fact-based or feeling-based, and I could say, Mom, this happened and I'm feeling like there's nothing off the table. And what a gift that is, because I see a lot of adults even now who are scared to confront feelings or who feel that honesty is like dangerous in a way. I am so much rather let's rip the band-aid off, like let's talk about it, let's figure it out
Hmm.
because of that gift my parents gave me. And my whole family, I guess, but yeah, I do think it's a gift.
I do too. And there's something about how you're speaking about it, Sonny, that I'm also connecting, like having that, sense of feelings are okay and I'm safe in a
Yes.
lot of atmospheres that allows you to go into arenas and like do what you're doing to, look at nuances of and speak into political, like charged topics,
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
perfect way of saying it. Yeah, uh, because I learned how to self-soothe from a very young age. Like I don't need people. I say this all the time on my platform. I don't mean to sound rude. I don't need you to agree with me. I'm gravy, baby. I know who I am.
Hmm.
I'm proud of my self as a person, my moral character. I mean, I self-correct. I am self-critical. I know I'm very aware. So I don't need people to agree with me. And but on social media, that's so weird because all people want to be is validated on social media. So some of the conflict that I get is like, why don't you tell us what you think more? Are you scared or don't you have a belief system? And I'm like, oh no, 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 believe me, I have a belief system. I just don't need anybody to co-sign. I am so okay
Yep.
standing alone in a lot of ways because I just learned that skill early. And so if there is something that I think that especially being in the media landscape that like all of this digital world has created that's negative, it's this need a lot of people have come to have to be validated or to I heard someone say this and it was so well put to have she said something like you don't want my opinion, you want to hear your opinion coming out of my mouth. And I was like, that's true.
Whoa.
That's true. And that's what we will all fall
Yeah.
into that if we're not especially careful with how we treat our own self-regulation, our own intelligence. Like, I don't want anyone to tell me, I don't need anyone to tell me what they think because I have done a lot of work and reading and research and I know what I think. So I'm equally comfortable listening to someone that I disagree with as someone I agree with because I'm
Mm.
used to conflict. I'm used to, dealing on both sides, but it's a skill learned over time. And I think that's like what's missing in a lot of, when people say, I'm so overstimulated by the news cycle. I'm so, okay, well, let's learn to self-soothe a little bit. Let's learn how to
Hmm.
build that foundation you have of your own belief system so that when you are, and you should be confronted with opposing opinions because that we can't live in an echo chamber, that you're still comfortable in yourself. And hey, maybe you're even open to learning something you don't know. Maybe you change your mind or maybe you don't. But that's what I think is like something that's kind of missing now because all the information is so prevalent and so nonstop right now.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
want to keep going into this because I think it's one of the things that piqued my, I mean, I'm always love looking at, and reading and I learned so much, but I'm like, this this relates and I gotta share it with what you do. But there was what came up for me as you were just saying that is I feel like we with what you're talking about self-soothing, because I think people think they have to harden themselves to like put up a armor, so to speak, against a naysayer or against people who don't,
Agree.
agree or whatever. And I'm really like, that's like really hitting me this time, right? Is no, that's exactly what we don't want to do is harden ourselves. So if we're not going to harden ourselves, then that skill of self-soothing, that skill of being able to absorb that someone else's charge
Right. Oh,
and
by putting it. Yes.
process it ourselves and see, yeah, like that brings up feelings of whatever. Um, but that it doesn't define me. It doesn't make me a bad, I don't have to make them a bad person because they got me upset, with how they're articulating it and
Right.
whew, that really goes against my beliefs or whatever. It's like, oh wow, like I can just notice and be curious. And I think that is where we stop and then we aren't curious anymore. And then we just pick a
Hard no.
side and dig in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really, it's dangerous. And I mean that literally. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
that some of the inadvertent patterns that we're developing through social media and media in general is putting us more in our corners, digging our heels in more. And that's practically really bad for our country, right? I mean, we are a two-party system, so eventually you do kind of have to pick a side, right? When you get into the voting booth. That's just the way things work and the way that we've set it up with the electoral college. I mean, like, we can, whatever. I'd love to see a three-party system. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
exist right now. So it's not that I don't, I think you have to land somewhere ultimately, right? But I know that some of my most profound moments of personal growth came from me holding not someone else's truth, but holding information or holding that conflict that used to really me, like make me like really agitated and
Mm-hmm.
holding space for it and breathing through it and understanding, hearing the information or the fact or the thought or opinion behind it and letting go of that feeling of being attacked. And then I can take that information without the feeling and say, okay, I'm going to hold this now. Is this an actual fact that I believe on its face without all the feeling and the emotion attached to it? And that's where you grow is when you start to
Mm-hmm.
um find all of that through the clutter. And so that's what I wish I could gift people that ability. And I'm not saying I have it so much and whatever, but if there were one thing that I
Well, you
wished
do.
for
Yeah.
people in this world, it's just like the ability to kind of hold that a little and really see where you land and stand and not
Mm-hmm.
just immediately push away because it's a real I know you think of this too with, your daughters, like we have a whole world to give them. And how do we want that to look? Do we want a
Mm-hmm.
world of communicators and people that can reach out to each other and get things done in a practical way, or do we want people just shouting at each other from their corners?
Yeah. Well, and that one, yes, this is the world we want to have them move into and step into and give them, you know, a world that has evolved, not, not devolved, but
Yes.
also be the models for them, right? If I'm not doing what we're talking about, being discerning, absorbing, self-soothing, and all of that, how would I expect them to navigate? Because there'll always be something, we're not going to magically give them a world where this has all been figured out and solved, right?
That's
Like
true.
they'll have whatever they're going to have. If we're evolving, it'll be something new that they have to work through.
Right. But the same, you're right. You're right. But the same skill set to get through it,
But
you
that
know?
skill set's going to serve them no matter what, and serve them to navigate the world, but serve them in if growth and development and moving yourself forward is important to you, then you kind of have to do
Yeah.
this, or
You got to be a little
it is a
uncomfortable.
pretty key ingredient.
Yeah.
So I want to
Yeah.
get kind of practical with it with you because we're talking about how you do this. So on your current platforms, your Substack and
Podcast.
podcasts that go, you know,
Hand in hand.
together. Yeah, they go hand in hand. Um, can you give an example of something that you're helping and bringing to the table that's providing a space to consider the nuances, to consider all the opinions, perspectives, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I know you have a
So,
lot of them, so
gosh,
whatever one
yeah,
comes to mind.
I'm gonna I guess I'll name a couple. I think in recent news events, gosh, I mean, I've covered every single topic. I've covered the Second
Hmm.
Amendment and gun rights. I interviewed a very staunch Second Amendment supporter, a man from the West Coast who is he was a really interesting interview because characteristically, like you would not think of him as a staunch Second Amendment supporter. He's really progressive. He's a married gay man. He's Asian. He is on TV. I mean, like you would be like, oh gosh, this is the most unlikely person. So I brought
Hmm.
him on to kind of challenge my drawn conclusion
Stereotypes.
on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it that was one of the more illuminating conversations I've had about
Mm,
understanding the idea behind why people believe what they believe, and we had a whole line of questioning about, I mean, just everything. So covered that topic. I've covered when Roe was overturned.
mm,
I covered that from, I guess, kind of both sides. I know there's like multiple angles to this. I talked to a constitutional attorney and professor who kind of gave the purely constitutional interpretation of why he thought that this is not something that should be enshrined in the Constitution. And then I talked to, more of a woman's rights advocate and why so I covered that.
mm,
When October 7th happened, I'm actually really proud of the way that I approached this event in general. And this is something
mm,
that I have candidly strong opinions on. And I think there are some basic truths that I hold that a lot of people also hold in their own corners. And I said to myself, what is one way? This is like literally the one of the oldest conflicts of all time, right? This is, you know, something that goes back ages, right? A conflict and a dialogue between cultures that has gone. I'm not going to solve it on a podcast. So how can I best represent the plurality of thought about this? So what I ended up doing, and I'm really proud of these episodes, is I gave a list of questions to two women, a Jewish American woman and a Palestinian American woman.
mm,
And I said, okay, what will not be of service in this conversation? My opinion, because frankly, I just had started to educate myself on this, on the history of this conflict when this happened. So I probably won't bring a lot to the table. So I said, the best way to do this would probably be to pre-interview these women, get their thoughts, get their approval, provide them the same list of questions. And I will dub they're going to sit there and read, the question was like, I don't remember what I provided, but it was the
mm,
same questions. They had the opportunity to say, I didn't want it to be perceived that I was giving more, pushback to this one and not that one. So I went back and dubbed my voice in, but they asked themselves the questions. My editor went back in, we put my voice in, and I added a nice contextual intro where I said, this is what happened, and here's how we're doing this because I want you to hear too, blah, 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 and they did their own thing and we put the outro. So
mm.
those went out. I covered that. I just did an episode this past week that I'm really proud of with an Iranian woman in the diaspora. Her parents were
Mhm.
born in Iran, and we talk about what's happening there from her perspective. And so, yeah, when I say like
Which
I
is really
listen,
amazing. I just listened to that one.
oh,
So
you
it
did?
was,
Okay.
yeah, really powerful. So,
Yeah,
so good.
it's
Yeah.
really so I guess when I say I provide like context and stories, I what I don't want to do is make it seem like, oh, all I'm doing is providing with endless perspectives. And I moral relativity is its own danger. I think there are some absolute truths in the world. So I never want to be the platform that's like, but what about this? But what about that? Because then you get conspiratorial very quickly. But what I do
Mm,
provide at some of these topics is just a little extra context, a little extra info, maybe framed in a way you haven't heard, hear it out, and wherever you land, you land. But it's just, yeah. So I guess those are some of the topics that I've covered. Literally all of the like probably most contentious issues in the world. But again,
yeah,
I ran toward them. So rather run toward than run away.
exactly. Well, and that's why I wanted to say that what I said earlier about the courage to not shy away from, you know, the biggies that are like out there, where there is so much, pick a side and stick to it kind of thing. And it made me realize, when I was hearing some, and this was back, I think, not that long ago, around us going in and arresting the Venezuelan president, right?
Mhm.
So I was kind of, taking through that one with you. And it was so important to me, right? Because I will initially just be hearing the thing on the side that I want to hear, right? Um, and it's like, but wait, these people are feeling this way, right? Like uh, not everyone thinks it's not our place. They're happy that it happened. Oh, there's that perspective, right? And then nuances, but you were really emphasizing like, wow, there's just so much nuance here and so much
There
to
is. And
just
I noticed something
get
that's
up to speed on, you
yeah,
know?
and listen, it's impossible to, and I will never be an ultimate one-man newsroom, one-stop shop. Like maybe
Hmm.
someday, I can grow this into like an actual news organization. But like, you know, I noticed something in that story early on. And again, because I am when I read stories, I have six different subscriptions that I go to. So I read what happened in that story, say, across six different outlets. And what I noticed, then I get on social media and I see how people are talking, and I noticed the only criticisms were coming from Western progressives. I have a Venezuelan neighbor. She was like, "This is great. I'm going to tell you what like, and all I was hearing from my Venezuelan followers and friends on social media was like how great this was. And I just made that simple observation and, and then I like to share what people say back. Like, okay, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like, am I right? Am I wrong? And it's cool to create a space where people also feel comfortable sharing that. So I want to keep
Hmm.
that vibe. But yeah, you're never going to get the
Well,
whole picture, you know?
no, exactly. And gosh, we've been obscuring the truth and the news and reality like ever since probably the written word, right? Like, or even before that, right? We're the way history's been changed, the way I talk about it a lot around motherhood and mothering and women and um, our value, right? And how, like, anyone can start a marketing campaign against it. And once it's out there enough, like, everybody believes it. And I think what does fuel my fire a lot is, I've worked hard and I still have such a long way to go to open myself up to perspectives in a lot of arenas. Um, but it's something I value so much. Like, I want women to have all of the information to make a discerned choice instead of just being told this is how you do it or this is how my family do it, so that's how you do it. Like, I think in some of that, now that I'm going to say this anyway, but I hadn't really thought about because my thinking wasn't valued in my upbringing. It's like what I thought, like my mom always trumped what I thought with because her thoughts were better,
Mhm.
like, and I
Yeah,
started believing that. And then it was like, oh, I wouldn't make a move without her approval or her, so that just built. So I think that is more than I realized the fuel underneath that of, oh, like I can one have my own opinions and two like what I thought didn't matter, but
right.
so you just go with like what the authority in your life is saying and that's what you do and we do kind of, whether they're bullies or whether they're just convincing or whether
Yeah,
it
it's true.
wasn't
And
like she
now look at
wasn't
what
doing
you've
it
done.
without love, right?
And
Like
now
it
you've
wasn't.
dedicated your life's work to helping women have a voice. Like, how cool is that? Like,
Yeah.
like, that must be cool to think about too. Like, your mission and purpose now is giving people maybe what you didn't have
Yeah.
or that assurance early on. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I've put it together a little bit, but not from that. Like, wow, you just, you didn't listen to other opinions.
right.
And, and what's funny is my dad had such a, um, one, like he was a like dug in, like this is in his own way, but his would have been more political and
Right.
social. My mom was more how you conducted yourself and like,
Mhm.
around things like that and what you wear, those,
Oh, yeah.
you
So
know,
funny. I laugh
yeah.
too because, like, you're talking about parents. I'm trying to think, like, we grew up in a my sister and I, like, it wasn't, my parents weren't overly political in any way. What they did give us, how they taught us was not ideologically based. It wasn't like we are this party, so this is what we believe. It was
Hmm.
just like very basic moral principles. It was like you do it the right way. You don't cheat. You're honest. And it was never, and those qualities were never assigned to one side or the other. So I think
Mm,
it's really
that's cool.
interesting because, we are in a really politicized world right now. But what I do, because I think that was a gift. My parents really gave, I think I got discernment because I was never like, you are a this and we are a that. And this is where, and so what I try to do, because like the kids are getting old enough to like hear, news coverage, but like
Yeah.
I try to be deliberate and not say, oh, this group thinks this and this group thinks that. So therefore, you got to pick a side. Like,
Hmm.
I hope to like, you know, give them the facts and being like, whatever that makes them identify as or whatever, they will get to that when they're old enough, but maybe keep it on principle rather than labels. Does that make sense? I'm
Yeah.
hearing you talk about your parents.
Totally.
Yeah, you're right. It is so it's so formative to like how our parents take in information or treat us or what they prioritize. Like kids pick up on everything, everything.
Hmm.
So I'm just, oof. It's like always something to think about. You know, we can screw our kids up in so many ways, Gertrude.
There's always, you're
Uh,
giving me so much to think about too. Yeah, I'm just, it's so interesting. But and you introducing any kind of topic with your kids that has them like, what do you think? I'm kind of picturing you being more like that, like, here, let me tell you, kids, this is how it is, versus the like, what do
uh, yeah, I mean,
what are your thoughts about it? And then, keep our mouths shut. Like that's was some of the best parenting coaching advice I got. What you have to say really isn't that important, but what they do, getting them to speak and, what do they think and what do they have to say is really where the
yeah.
treasure is.
And kind of like, I hope that I'm like the bumpers, like the bowling bumpers. I will like, okay, well, it's, like kind of keep them in line as best as I can. But I do think that like, to raise kids in this world, that discernment is going to be a really, really big quality. Like I'm thinking too, like I try not to share like too much about my kids, but let me see if I can say it's in a general way.
Hmm.
Um, my son has really shown me lately that he is really capable of establishing like good boundaries. Like he has a should I talk about him? Anyway, he has someone in his life special to him, and he is telling me stuff about her, and he's like, and this is what I think now, and this is where like, and I'm like, "Ah, you're so like grown up about this." And he was talking to me about like how much they're talking, and and how he thinks that he should approach it now. And I'm like, this is very thoughtful of you. And I kind of like I don't know. It's just cool to see. Like I said to my husband the other day, I was like, maybe he's like picking something up along the way.
Yeah,
Like, 'cause I
exactly.
remember,
Like maybe
right,
how
maybe
we're
we're doing something
operating
wrong.
or, what's happening here. Like when you see them, do something that's mature or thoughtful or emotionally intelligent, you're like,
Yeah,
because we're so quick to say all the things, all the problems are our fault. And that's, but it's not like we are claiming a victory, but it's just nice to know, like, oh, I think like we do have an impact, right? Like, and it's,
like that's cool. Like maybe
yeah.
I'm doing a couple things right. But yeah, they definitely like is seeing even like little glimmers of them, for example, being able to set boundaries or understanding like friendship is a big thing right now at their age and like, learning how to communicate. When I see like little wins with how they carry themselves through a conflict, I'm like, ah, that's cool. Like I'm proud of you. I don't
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just it's wild. It's like I mean every mom feels like this. Like you're like reliving every little trauma of your own childhood when you when you watch your kids, you're like,
That's why I hope to like just so that people know that and they're not, I think that is such an important statement. You do relive them and we either can work with that
yeah,
material or think that we can suppress it or ignore it, but it just shows up,
yeah, it
And
does.
if we can face that one head on with courage, that takes a lot too, right?
Yeah, yeah. I always say I try not to parent from my own trauma. Like I had my own little things growing up, but when I see my kids going through something similar, say a friend issue or like a girlfriend boyfriend issue, or not that they're quite there yet, but
Hmm.
I tell myself, okay, Sonny, don't act from little Sonny behavior. Like this may have also happened to you. This isn't about how you would react. So I like something happened recently and I was like in a corner just being like like breathe. This is not your,
Right.
I said do not parent from your own trauma. This is not you. She is a different human. Yes, she's more like you because she's your genetic, copy, but and the way that my daughter handled something I was very proud of and it was very uniquely her in her own way. And I
Mm.
said, "Wow, you're a lot tougher than mom would have been." Like I don't know, like I really try to separate my trauma from
Yeah.
what I tell them because it can be
Well,
really,
and I like how you're wording it, to not parent from your trauma, but understand that it is going to trigger trauma and that's like your work to do, right? Like
yeah,
that's for you to take somewhere and heal and grow and process and you can, but otherwise we just reactively then like try and protect them from that thing or like, oh, I wish we're exactly what you said. So I think that's really, really important.
I was ready. I was like sweating. I was like, oh God, this is so
I know.
I wanted to be like, okay, here's what you do. And I was like,
Yes.
what do you think you should do? Like on the inside, I'm crawling. But I'm on the outside, I'm like, okay, well, tell me what happened when, and I'm like, it was just, it was like a full body experience, the stress from that situation.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. Okay, well, we're going to start moving toward um, wrapping up, but a couple things before that. I would love for you to share how people find your Substack, find your podcast, and this world, and become part of it, because I think it's such a gift and something I don't can't think of anyone that wouldn't benefit, from this. And then I have one more question for you. So why don't we go there first?
Okay, so I have a podcast. It's called We Gotta Talk, and it comes out mostly every week. It is my whole tagline for my platform, my podcast, and my Substack is like 25% serious, 75% fun. So,
Mm.
um, we got to talk. Sometimes we have news. The latest episode is about what's happening in Iran. I have an episode coming out this upcoming week about some media stuff. And the Substack is just sonniabatta.substack.com. It's also 25% news, 75% fun. So
Mhm.
every Monday I send out a news mailer called News for Normies. It is 3 stories that go right to your inbox with what's new, background and context, and what to follow in the coming weeks. It could be something that happened just the day before. It could be something that I've been following for weeks. So I've been following what's
Mm.
happening in Minnesota, what's happening in Iran, all of this. What we had a bunch of weeks of what was happening in Venezuela.
Mhm.
But the difference is I am sourcing from, like I said, at least a half a dozen news organizations that really span the ideological
Yeah.
spectrum. I read from both sides and I bring a lot of perspective to each story. So when you hear, for example, what's happening in Minnesota, it's not just going to be what you're reading in the New York Times. It's going to have a little bit of other perspective too. So News for Normies is Monday. The rest of the Substack is really fun. I don't know, like closet tours and skincare. I'm
Mhm.
like a big beauty junkie. And yeah, that's what the platform is all about. It's a little bit of serious and a little bit of more fun. And it's called We Gotta Talk. And
I love
then
it.
I'll send you the link for the Substack, but it's just my name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we definitely have to have that in there. I think it's beautiful. And as we talked about, I'm new on Substack, and I so far I have just a really good feeling about it. It's like I enjoy it, and it it's I hope it stays how it is.
Yeah, yeah. It's been refreshing, hasn't it, as far as
Mhm.
platforms go?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. Okay, well, hi, like please reach out and please connect with Sunny and become a subscriber, follower, all the good things.
Thank
And
you.
then, so my last question that I ask my guests is, what does rewrite the mother code mean to you?
Oh, I love this. I feel like I need to bring my sister in for this conversation. We're always talking about generational trauma. Like, again, not in a bad way.
Yes.
Rewriting the mother code to me means being a little more aware in every generation and
Mm,
respecting the wisdom our mothers and our grandmothers and elders have passed down and sharpening it with the spiritual tools that we have now. It is taking the benefit of years of tradition and wisdom and things passed down and putting our own spin on it and rewriting for our children what it means to be a good man or a good woman and raising them
mhm,
with that awareness. I think as much as we talk about the negative impact, like I said, of generational trauma, there's also something to be said for the generational strength that has passed down.
Here, here.
I know that when I look back on my family and the amazing things that not only my maternal bloodline has done, but also my father and my grandfathers and all the men in my life, I like to, in moments of weakness or sadness, I like to think back on all the badass stuff that my family did for generations before me
Mm,
and say, if they got through that, you can get through this, I don't know, tennis match or something
yeah.
stupid. You can get
Yeah.
through this crazy day that you had at
Yeah.
work matter or whatever. And so I guess that's what it would mean to me is like taking the very best of what our mothers and our fathers and parents have given us and making it that much better for the next generation.
Mm. I love that, Sunny. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Like these answers are always such a gift to me to hear, it come through and the perspective and, they're always spot on for just what they are and what they mean to you. So thank you for that. It's a huge gift.
Of
And you're
course.
a huge gift, and I'm so happy that we're in our worlds in the way that we are, and always hungry for more Sunny.
Oh, you're such a calm and positive presence in this online space. And so I'm also grateful to have connected with you all those years ago. I think I interviewed you, I don't even remember when. It has to be 4 or 5 years ago. But
Oh my God, no,
I
Sunny.
have similarly followed your path
Yeah.
and seen all the good that you put out into the world. And because it is so crowded, it's not like uncommon to like lose threads on people, but you are someone that I've really enjoyed. Just your wisdom is just always so valuable. So I'm really
Mm,
grateful that we connected and have stayed in touch. So thank you for having
me
me.
too. You're
Yeah.
welcome. So thanks. All right. Well, I always, maybe I should keep the recording on when we end officially the interview and get to chat afterwards, because it was so easy for me to just share with Sunny how much I am inspired by her. And I loved that episode and our conversation, and felt safe to share about myself, share about my journey, share how I'm operating in the world in ways that I don't always with a guest. So thank you, Sunny, for that. And I felt like we got to, look at everything from what is the wiring? How did we come to be doing what we're doing, and having that be reflected in our professions, and who we are in the world, that has its roots in our upbringings. I love that we touched on the importance of connecting with and having a relationship with your inner child. It's such beautiful work, and it's something I love doing with my clients. And that's not something you like, oh, I did inner child work. That's an ongoing and a building of relationship. And just was working with a client this morning on that, and she said the difference that it's making, stopping and acknowledging, and particularly in some charged times or some challenging times, and seeing her little girl, and then being there for her little girl in some of these scared spaces, or who she was then, and get to comfort her. And then also, the mutual support that goes back and forth in that relationship when we bring it to the table and bring it to our consciousness. So would love to support you on that journey and in that work. And then really the importance of discernment, of curiosity, of if, you know, seeing things, being willing to, and having enough like sense of self, and enough safety and security that we've created within ourselves to have the courage to explore what we know might be opinions, thoughts, other sides of the story, because we can get so hooked into like just wanting to validate our beliefs or our story, and see that sometimes when we've really dug in, really explored like what our values are, um, what our desires are, that those it isn't a one size fits all, and we can find those in a lot of spaces that we might not have thought we could find them in. So I'm really grateful for this conversation today. I strongly encourage you to reach out, connect with Sunny on her Substack, Sonni.Abatta. She's also on Instagram, and her podcast, We Gotta Talk. Okay. Well, I'll send you off to all of that. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being in my community. And till next time.